And before we put our liquid back in, or put our liquid in, we are going to make a bit of a roux base. And I'm going to do another show about sauces and things like roux. So I won't go into that here because it's kind of a subject in and of itself. But generally speaking, what we're going to do is add flour to fat. And in this case, I'm going to put some more butter in the pan because there's not very much fat left in the bottom. So I'm going to grab some more butter. Again, this could be your choice as to what kind you use. You could use olive oil, regular oil. It doesn't really matter. And in fact, I think I'm going to add a little olive oil with it, just to keep it from burning too badly. And then I'm going to add just about, a tablespoon of flour. This is all-purpose flour, and it's just going to help thicken the broth. So you mix that in with the fat. We're going to cook it a few minutes more to get the sort of raw flour taste out of it. If it starts to stick to the bottom, just scrape it up. No big deal. And once you've stirred that around a little bit, given it a minute to cook, we will start to add our broth. Now, in this case, I'm going to use sherry because that's what I have. Red wine would be excellent. If you don't have either of those, just use water or stock. Water with your base or stock. Canned stock, what have you. It's really not that exacting. So I'm going to add, that's probably a quarter cup to a half cup of sherry. I'm going to scrape the bottom of the pan to get the brown bits up and reduce the sherry and burn off the alcohol. And I should have ready, but I don't. I guess I do. Anyway, has anybody else noticed cuts of meat in the store you've never heard of before? I have to admit I'm out of the loop a little bit because I use venison most of the time. I don't usually use beef. But I've never heard of this chuck steak before. I guess they're helping us find cheaper cuts. Alright, you can see, I hope, how most of the sherry has reduced. So I'm going to add some water. Oops, I thought I had water in my teapot. Turn the camera off and I'll be back. Alright, let's try that again. I'm going to add my water. How much? Oh, I don't know. You're going to want enough that it covers the steaks when we put them back in. So let me just finish scraping the bottom of this pan. Before I do that, I'm going to add at this point also 2 bay leaves. Totally optional. You can use whatever spices you like. I'm going to add some more black pepper because I love pepper. Again, that's totally optional. And I'm going to add my beef base. Again, I just start with a good sized spoon. You're going to, after it's cooked for a while, you're going to come back and taste it, and you'll have a chance to adjust. If it's too salty, just add a little more liquid. If it doesn't taste salty enough, you probably need more base. And again, for those of you that don't know, this is made by Tones, and it's a paste rather than bouillon cubes, although you could certainly use bouillon cubes. If you do, be very careful in the beginning with how much salt you put in, because the bouillon, of course, is very salty. Alright, we're going to give this a stir to get that base mixed up. And at the very end of this, you will see I'm going to add some milk. So it's going to be kind of like a mushroom cream gravy. So I put my steaks back in. I want to bring this up to a boil, so I'm going to turn it up. But then the second it comes to a boil, I'm going to turn it down. I want to simmer it really slowly because it's going to simmer a long time. and that's what's going to make it really tender. Alright, so you can see that these are covered by the liquid. If they weren't covered, you could just add as much water as you needed to bring it up. I see mine's bubbling, so I'm going to turn it way down. We just want a really gentle simmer. With vegetables, you can boil them as hard as you want. With meat, if you boil it too hard, you're going to make it tough. And that's certainly not what we want to do. Alright, so this is looking good right now. I'm going to put a lid on it. And I'm going to walk away. And I will be back in a number of hours to finish it up. Okay, this is about how you want it to be boiling. A nice gentle, or simmering I mean, a nice gentle simmer. I didn't mention, but if you wanted to add green peppers to this, you certainly could, or really any vegetable you want. I'm serving this over egg noodles, but if you weren't, you certainly could add potatoes to this also, or you could serve it over rice. In addition, if you did not want to use sherry, an excellent substitute would be Worcestershire sauce. And I'd probably start with maybe a tablespoon or a few shakes and then taste it. I mean, it's to your taste, so whatever you think would be good, but that'll give it that little bit of a tang, I guess is the right word. And then the last thing I didn't mention was if you wanted to stretch this for more people, you could certainly cut these steaks in halves or quarters, or even just cut it up in chunks and serve a lot more people that way. Now the other thing is, this gravy is not quite as thick as I would like it to be. It's still pretty thin, and that's because I didn't add quite enough flour before. If I were to add more flour now, I would just end up with a big lump. So instead what I've done, if you can see, I've mixed the flour with butter, and you certainly could mix flour with olive oil or something else, but what that does is it keeps the individual flour grains from sticking together and making a lump. So I'm going to just whisk this in to the gravy and let it melt, and I'm hoping you'll see that this is going to thicken up pretty quickly. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit for this particular process, even though I'm not, but I think you can see already how that's thickening up a bit. I'm going to add the rest. You want to go a little bit at a time because you don't want it to turn into too thick. If you did get it too thick, you could always just add more water, so it's not the end of the world. But you know, you don't want to have to keep going back and forth. Alright, and this is going to continue to thicken as it cooks. I think you can see how already it's significantly thicker than it was. And at the very last minute, which I'm not going to show because again I am shy about filming around my family, but you would add anywhere from a quarter to a half a cup of milk or cream or evaporated milk, and that will make this kind of a cream gravy, and then it's ready to be served. So I hope you try it. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll catch you on the next run. Take good care, folks.